to John's Box, and welcome to part 7 of 8 in Swindon and its railways. And in this part we feature the great locomotives built at Swindon, or rather some of the great locomotives, steam locomotives built at Swindon. But before we look at that, just a pledge to support my channel, make it grow. Every subscriber helps. Yeah, so just press on that subscribe button, just a plug there. So thousands of locomotives were built in the Swindon Works over a period of 130 years. Last was built in 1960. Today we're going to feature 3 of those locomotives, plus we're going to have a look at the Museum of Steam. Just a moment. So the first locomotives were built in the 1840s after the railway works had opened, and as I mentioned, the last was built in 1960. So sit back, relax in your first class carriage and enjoy. Right at the end there'll be a brief look at the Museum of Steam. From the beginning, the engineers at Swindon were keen to see manufacture done in-house rather than by contractors. The first locomotive built in Swindon was in 1846, and it was called the Great Western, and after that date, engines were made in increasing numbers. Indeed, hundreds and thousands of steam locomotives were built at Swindon Works, starting from narrow gauge and then onto broad gauge, up until 1960, when the last steam locomotive rolled off, and it was the 9220 Evening Star that was completed at the works. William Dean, chief locomotive engineer at Swindon Works from 1877 to 1902, designed the Dean Goods class of locomotives. The first locomotive of the class was built in 1883 at Swindon. During the First World War, 62 of these locos were sent to France and Salonika in Greece. The engines were lightweight, strong and reliable, making them ideal for war work. Inexperienced crews also found them easy to drive. During the Second World War, 108 of these locos were requisitioned. Of these, 32 had already seen service during the First World War. Most were sent to France and many were destroyed in the retreat to Dunkirk or used on the French railways by German forces. Number 2516 was built in 1897. It spent most of its working life taking goods and passengers up and down the GWR branch lines in mid-Wales before being withdrawn from service in the 1950s. George Jackson Churchwood, chief mechanical engineer for the GWR from 1902 to 1922, designed the City class of locomotive. For the City locos, he used initial designs prepared by his predecessor, William Dean. The GWR built 10 City class locos between 1903 and 1907. They also converted 10 GWR Atspara class locos into the City class. In 1903, 3440 City of Truro became the 2000th loco built at Swindon Works. It was renumbered 3717 by GWR in 1912, along with a number of other locos. This meant that locos of the same class all had consecutive numbers. On 9th of May 1904, City of Truro claimed to be the first steam locomotive to reach over 100 miles an hour. It was travelling between Plymouth and London Paddington, hauling the Ocean Mail Special. City of Truro was timed as taking 8.8 seconds to travel a quarter of a mile, equal to 102.3 miles an hour. City of Truro was withdrawn from service in 1931. Although it was later returned to Heritage Railway service and continued operating until 2011. George Jackson Churchwood, Chief Mechanical Engineer for the GWR from 1902 to 1922, designed the City class of locomotive. For the City locos, Charles Collett, Chief Mechanical Engineer at Swindon Works from 1922 to 1941, designed the Castle class of locomotive. He based the designs for the Castle class locos on the earlier Star class. In 1922, Castle locos were Britain's most powerful express passenger loco. Castle class locos had larger boilers and were designed to pull heavier loads. Between 1923 and 1950, the GWR built 155 Castle locos at Swindon Works. A further 16 were converted from other classes. On the 23rd of August 1923, Caerphilly Castle was the first Class Castle loco to go into service. In 1924 and 1925, Caerphilly Castle was exhibited at the British Empire Exhibition at Wembley, next to the Flying Scotsman. The locomotives featured in this video are all housed in the Steam Museum of the Great Western Railway, which tells the story of men and women who built, operated and travelled on the Great Western Railway. The museum features not only these famous locomotives, but it is possible to drive the train simulator, travel through the history of Swindon's Great Western Railway, and even work the signals in the interactive GWR signal box. The museum is housed in a beautifully restored Grade 2 railway building in the heart of the former Swindon Railway Works. Hope you enjoyed all that. In the final edition of Swindon and its Railways, we'll be looking at 5 remaining locomotives, and I promise I'll draw you one of them. So that'll be, I hope, sometime in August. If not in August, then in September. So thank you very much once again. Don't forget to do all the usual YouTube stuff, and see you again soon in my next video. Bye for now.